How can the Oklahoma City Thunder maximize their rotation? We'll talk about that. Plus, what if Micic comes in and fits perfectly in Oklahoma City? And how will J-Dub continue to progress? All that and more coming up on today's Mailbag Monday episode of the Locked On Thunder podcast.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're answering your mailbag questions such as, what if Micic is a perfect fit in the NBA? Some great questions about how to maximize this rotation and this lineup for OKC, J-Dub's progression, Cason Wallace's future, expectations for next year, and more. This is just part one of your mailbag questions because you sent in so many. I appreciate that. So that also means, though, that you still have time to send in mailbag questions on the YouTube comment section and also on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. You can also text the show on subtext, that's 405-963-3686, to discuss anything you want about the Oklahoma City Thunder. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. And let's dive into this first question, which is a great question from at M20Workman. Give your choice of lineups for these scenarios. And he goes through and lists a ton of scenarios. And I think that this question really illustrates a talking point that I've been using this offseason of how deep this Thunder team is, how many options this Thunder team has, and it's really twofold. You're going to have options for, as Sam Presti puts it, when the sky falls. He says that the sky will fall twice a year on an NBA team throughout the course of an 82-game season, so you're going to have options for whenever those scenarios pop up. You're also going to have options for nights where certain guys just don't have it. They're not playing to their ability. They're not playing to the level that you think that they can play, and they just need a different look out there. And so within that comes versatility of highlighting certain players' strengths and kind of hiding other players' weaknesses. So let's go through these scenarios and talk out what lineups that we would use for these scenarios and play along at home. The scenarios are down 5 with a minute left, up by 3 with a minute left, down 10 early in the game and the starting lineup does not have it, playoffs, a tied game, 1 minute left, and then you're looking for the best 5 shooters for a nuclear shooting lineup. So let's start with down by 5 with a minute left. Look, I think that this lineup has some of the more, some of the most combinations of any of these scenarios. What I settled on was SGA. Duh. He's a 30-point per game scorer. He is a good defender. He also, of course, is your best offensive weapon. So he's going to be in there down by 5, a minute left. Throw in Isaiah Joe for the floor spacing that he provides, because whenever you look at this lineup, you already have SGA. He's going to get downhill at every point in the game. You're down by 5. The drive and kick to Joe is going to be there. And Joe can knock it down. SGA is going to command more attention than just one player. The likelihood that player who helps on SGA is defending Joe is pretty high. Joe has that open look. I'm going to put Josh Giddey in here. And I know that his shooting might deter some of you from including him in this down by 5 scenario. But Josh Giddey, his ability to do a few things are vital when trying to come back. Number 1, rebounding. He is one of the best perimeter rebounders ever, in the NBA, I should say, that can just soar in there, down there, and get a rebound, even though he's technically listed as a guard. His outlet passing off of those rebounds gets you quick points, which with a minute left, down 5, you need. And most importantly, his inbounding. Whenever you're down by 5, you've got to balance scoring quickly with being out of control. And Josh Giddey will let you stay under control. He'll let you in possessions with rebounding. He'll let you get quick buckets with his outlet passing. And then on the inbound, he's not going to panic. He's not going to throw the ball away. He's not going to waste a precious possession. So that's why I still have Josh Giddey in here, even though his shooting is not yet up to par. And then I'm going to have Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara. He not only provides defense, and I think that while we focus a lot on his offense, his defense was good for a rookie last year and will continue to get better year over year. I think that he has the tools and the potential to be a really good defender. So he has the defense. He's an efficient scorer, which you need when you're trying to get these quick strikes. But he also has great awareness. And you can see it down the stretch of last year. Like down stretch runs of contests last year. We always talk about how rookies don't impact winning and, how difficult it is for rookies to pick up winning along the way. But J-Dub did impact winning, and he was very valuable. It's because of his situational awareness on the floor. He understands when you need it to, when you can get a three, when to pass up a 2 for a 3, and when to just score the easy bucket. You've seen him go coast to coast in like three seconds and get a bucket, less than 3 seconds to get a bucket. Like he is quick, efficient, and he can score and play defense. So I'll have J-Dub in there. So far, we've got SGA, Isaiah Joe, Josh Giddey, J-Dub. I'm going to also put in Chet Holmgren. You need that rim protection to not give up any easy buckets because, down by 5 with a minute left, an easy bucket could do you in. He also provides floor spacing. You saw how teams defended him in Summer League, where they're just flying out there and over pursuing him on the perimeter. That gravity is going to help alleviate some pressure on Shea getting downhill at the rim. You can also roll for easy buckets in the pick and roll with SGA or Josh Giddey. And of course, defend the rim and do everything that he can do defensively. So down by 5, I think that's your best option because you've got to balance scoring quick with not giving up buckets to not let them grow their lead. And so the area here, Josh Giddey might be a weakness defensively, but his rebounding helps him in possessions and helps him on the end of the floor. Isaiah Joe is a bit small, but we noted all year long how he plays bigger than he is on that end of the floor and stays attached to guys. And at this point, we'll sacrifice some defense for the fact that we have a guy that can stay in front of his matchup at least, and then can also knock down threes at his clip. And then you have SGA, Dub, Chet, who you love. Now, up by 3 with a minute left. And the note here is this against a good offense. So this is a really good offense. You're up by 3. This is interesting with a minute left because there's still a lot of time. And in basketball, a minute is still a lot of time, especially with the NBA, how you can advance the ball, etc. So you've still kind of got a gear to play offense. You're not quite at that offense-defense point of the game where you can start subbing in and out based on free throws and everything else. So for me, whenever I look at this possible lineup, I would still keep SGA in there because he provided some really good defense last year. And he's also your best offensive weapon to help, keep that lead, keep the flow of the offense. Also, with the flow of the offense note here, he shot 90% at the free throw line last year. So if you can cling to this lead long enough of this duration of this minute, then you're going to be able to have him knock down free throws to ice the game because he shot 90% last year at the stripe. So I'll keep SGA in there. I'll put, instead of Isaiah Joe, I'll put Cason Wallace. I think Cason Wallace can be an incredible NBA defender, but also a really good catch and shoot 3-point shooter. So you get some of that shooting that Joe brings, not all of it, obviously, but some of it, and you improve mightily defensively. Then I'll have Dort's defense out there because he's who you're going to put on a good offense's best scorer. No matter what position that they play, he'll be defending them. Then you have J-Dub, who I think, again, will be a good defender and can also score and is also situationally aware. And Chet. Chet, defense, scoring, same situation. So we're swapping out Joe and Giddey for Cason Wallace and Lou Dort whenever you go up by 3 with a minute left against a really good offense. Here's the fun one. You can debate the first 2 lineups for sure, but this one is where you really have room to debate. Down by 10 early in the contest, and the starting lineup is off to a brutally cold start. Who do you throw in there? My 5 were pretty easy to get to, but I can see a pathway for you to disagree with my 5. So the first guy I'm putting in is Micic. He is a guy, a 2-time EuroLeague MVP, a 2-time EuroLeague champion. He's brilliant at navigating the pick and roll and being able to score, and also he's not a terrible defender. Putting him in to steady the ship and bring leadership off the bench is my first call. Then you bring in Cason Wallace, who gives you that shooting and defense. You bring in Aaron Wiggins, who is just this ball of energy that produces winning plays. You bring in Kenrich Williams, who is that tough, gritty player that takes no nights off, and J. Will, who brings you a ton of energy. I think that in a hypothetical world where you're starting lineup of SGA, Giddey, Dort, Dub, Chet, got off to some cold start, them seeing this second unit play with a lot of energy will flip the switch for them as well. So that's kind of where I'm looking at with this lineup. You're going to have Micic to lead the offense. You have guys who can complement him in Cason and Wiggins offensively. And then you have J. Will and Kenrich, who will bring it every single night. I think I love that lineup. It's like the spark lineup. Then we get to playoffs, tied game, 1 minute left. And I think that this lineup will switch, let's say 3 times during the season. I think right now, you have to go with what you believe the best lineup is, which I think that we all believe is the starting 5. And so I say SGA, Giddey, Dort, J-Dub, Chet. Now, SGA, Dub, Chet, Giddey, not debatable. I can see some of you shivering right now at Lou Dort. I will point out, though, we've seen Lou Dort at every point in his career, whenever he's gotten the chance to play postseason basketball, we've seen him raise his game. We've seen him elevate. We've seen him produce at both ends in the playoffs. So in a playoff setting, tie game, 1 minute left, I trust him. Last year in the play-in, we saw Josh Giddey take his step up offensively against the Pelicans. So I'll trust Josh Giddey. Then you have Dub, SGA, Chet. So as of this moment in time, I think that that's going to be your best lineup in the playoffs. So that's who I'd rock with right now. Now, we could see other guys step up, other guys excel in different scenarios, and maybe this answer changes 2, 3, 4 times between now and when the playoffs actually arrive. But I think that is kind of your group, and it has to kind of be your answer for now. What is the nuclear shooting lineup? I have 2 answers, and this might be cheating, but you didn't give a time limit here. So if I've got to still keep an offensive flow, like if I've got to keep playing, and we're like in the second quarter, but we need some shooting, and so we just got to keep going, but we need some shooting, I would put SGA, Isaiah Joe, Cason Wallace, J-Dub, and Chet on the floor. Now, if we're at the end of a quarter, end of a half, end of the game, and I've just got one play, and it's going to be a 3-point shot, and I need all the best shooters out there, then I'd get crazy and go SGA, Cason, Isaiah Joe, Bertans, and Chet. But that's not very flowy. I don't think that lineup could flow within a game. You could play that first lineup. I think you could play that lineup for a 3, 5, 6 minute stretch. That second lineup, you can't play but for a situational possession. So that's where I'm at on the nuclear shooting lineup. I answered it in 2 different ways. It could be a cop-out. If I had to pick only one lineup, I'd pick my first lineup. But if we just needed a 3, I'd put those guys on the floor. Coming up, let's talk Micic and what if he translates to Oklahoma City. And are we overlooking the potential of a J-Dub leap this year? And all of your other questions in part 1 of Mailbag Monday. But first, I want to tell you right now, our good friends over at FanDuel, folks, because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. You can go to FanDuel.com/lockdown right now to get started, and you can bet on baseball. They have every sport imaginable, but right now you can take your first swings at betting on the MLB, and you can win 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right. If you just bet $20, you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Folks, it is incredible to go to the FanDuel app because it is not only America's #1 sportsbook, but it is safe, secure, easy to use, and you get paid instantly at FanDuel. And so you can go bet on the money line, you can go bet on the spread, you can go bet on prop bets, anything you want to over there at FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon for $200 in bonus bets. FanDuel, the official partner of Locked On and Major League Baseball. You can bet right now on the Phillies and Marlins. The Phillies are a 1.5 favorites on the road in Miami. So go check that out at FanDuel.com/lockedon. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Today, we're answering your mailbag questions, part 1 of this mailbag episode. At Barna35, if Micic translates to the NBA and is the exact player he was in the EuroLeague, does he crack the starting lineup? Is he a difference maker, and who does he take out of that starting lineup? So first and foremost, if Micic translates exactly 1-to-1 the way he played in the EuroLeague, he is absolutely a difference maker. And I don't think he will start. Because from everything that we've been told, like, Micic understands the situation here. He understands what he signed up for. He understands how he's going to be used. He understands and is comfortable with the deal. And so, as he prepares for the NBA and he forgoes the FIBA World Cup, I should say, he is prepared for what this is going to look like in Oklahoma City. Now, will he make a start this year? I think he will, because someone's going to be out for a game or two. You're not going to get through this season and Shea, Giddey, Dub, Dort all play 82 games. They're not all going to get that 82 game mark. If they do, that is a fantastic anomaly season that not many teams can say that they've had. So, with that being said, he is the perfect guy to transition to the starting lineup in a pinch like that, because he's going to be one of the most trustworthy players. Like, you know that if you put Micic in a game, he's not going to lose you a game. He's going to play smart basketball. He's going to bring leadership. He's going to play under control. He's going to do what you ask him to do. And he's just going to be at the center of good play. So you can trust him to navigate things, weather the storm, get off to big runs. You can trust him. And so that's why I think his best value, even forgetting about if he's better or if he's not better than the 5 starters, his best value is off the bench, where he's running the show, where he's in charge of navigating the pick and roll, where he's in charge of navigating the offense, and he's in charge of bridging the gap from what this team looks like when the starters go to the bench, where you can rest SGA, J-Dub, Giddey, and not worry that your lead will dissipate in 2 seconds. You can take some of that pressure off of your team. So I don't think he'll start this year as like a mainstay starter. And I think that his value will actually suggest that he's like better running the show in the second unit versus trying to find his spots with this starting group. Because even if you think he's just straight up better than Lou Dort, for example, the style of play he'd have to play alongside SGA and Giddey is way different than what would highlight his skill set. And so that too adds into how he'd be better coming off the bench, even though it's quote unquote off the bench and like he's a bench player. I don't think that it's the negative that it appears to be for either side. At 123 OKC 321. Are we overlooking Jalen Williams' possible growth next year? He has improved every month since day one, and we have evidence that he has a similar mindset to Chet and SGA in terms of work ethic. So I can't speak for everyone. The internet is a vastly huge place, right? So you might be seeing someone discrediting J-Dub's potential to improve next year. For me personally, I've only seen people get overly excited about J-Dub's potential to improve next year. So, but again, let's just take this for the question that's worth, because I believe that you've probably seen that the internet's so big that you can probably find every opinion out there. For me personally, Jalen Williams has gotten better each year of his basketball life, from high school to college. I mean, he became a lottery pick overnight. In the combine, he got better from the end of the college season to the combine. Then the combine, of course, to the NBA, and then the NBA month over month, like you suggested in this question. He's going to get better. You've seen that he's already in the gym getting a lot bigger and stronger, and everything that he can do in terms of having this bigger body that he now possesses. So for me, I'm not worried about like his development. I think he's going to develop and he's going to look better. He's going to continue to get better year over year. I think he'll look a lot like Shai, where Shai's always played good and Shai's always gotten better. And here recently, as he's gotten older, we've said, well, this might be his cap, and it never is. Like he's always going to get better and better and better. To this point, Shai's always climbed up. I think it'll be the same thing for J-Dub. Even with a very impressive rookie season, he'll still climb up and up and up. And one thing that I've highlighted is, for him and Chet, I think going to Team USA, even though they're on the select team, even though there's a higher than not chance that they're not even going to play a game, just simply being around those players, practicing against those players in that environment is going to make them better. That's been the case for a lot of players who have gone and played in some variation with Team USA. They've gotten better by being around that coaching staff. They've gotten better by being around those top players. And it's going to be the same for J-Dub and Chet because they're both players who not only improve dramatically, but players who are like sponges that want to learn, want to study, basketball junkies. So I do think that J-Dub will have an improvement this year and will have a pretty significant one. Now, let's take at Brett HD3's question. If you were an NBA general manager, who would you take to build your team around, SGA or Chet? To me, this is like a no-brainer. I would take SGA because he makes your life so much easier. And that's how valuable he is. Let's say that both these guys hit their top 1%, the tippity top ceiling of their game. So let's not discredit Chet here. Let's say he hits the best he can be. Even if Chet Holmgren hits the best that he can be, which is an incredible player, it will be easier to build around SGA. SGA plays the guard position, but SGA is versatile. He's shown a willingness and an ability, more importantly, to play on and off the ball, to play with a couple more ball handlers, to play as the only ball handler, to play as an isolation scorer, to play as a play finisher. He has shown an ability to do everything on the basketball court, and now he's improved defensively to where last year Synergy grades SGA as an excellent defender in the NBA for his position. So like the idea and the ability that SGA has to carry your team and to fit around whoever you bring him is going to kind of lift him above Chet. The thing with big men is, and I think will be the same with Chet, they can't play with everybody. They just can't. You can pair them with the wrong four. You can pair them with the wrong guard. Look at Minnesota. Look at the feeling of Cat year over year as you start to pair him with different options and you start to pair him with different players. It starts out with Wiggins, then it goes to Ant Edwards, then it goes to Ant and Rudy Gobert. Like the public opinion of Cat has changed and declined with who you've put around him. And so you've got to hit on how you surround Chet. Whereas with SGA, he can be more adaptive. He can change. He can fit in. It's going to be really hard, and it would be really hard. If you were in charge of an NBA team, it would be harder to find players that won't fit with Shai than to find players that will. And so that makes your life so easy that you'd always pick SGA. Not to mention the obvious fact of this guy's already scored 31 points per game while being efficient, while being a good defender in the NBA, while another guy has not played an NBA game. Forgetting that easy talking point, even beyond that, even giving them their best of the best ceilings, it's just so much easier to build around Shai than a player like Chet. If you can only pick one. Luckily for the Thunder, they don't got to pick one. They can build around both of them, and both of them are going to be very, very good. But you just see the positional value of trying to build around Evan Mobley. Like you get Garland, you get Evan Mobley, you trade for Donovan Mitchell, you go get Jared Allen, and now you got kind of a funky group of Allen and Mobley, and what can that really get you? Where can that really get you to go? Right? So it's just easier for the sake of your job, right, to build around SGA. And that's why I would take SGA. Coming up, we'll talk about Cason Wallace and Keontae Johnson's ceiling. We'll talk about if you could add one player from any team, who would it be? Their rotation and best Thunder players of all time, all coming up. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. At Brett HD3 asks, what could Cason Wallace and Keontae Johnson's future ceiling be in the Thunder rotation, and where do you see them in the next 5 years? Cason has a better chance to be a mainstay of the rotation this year than Keontae does, but Keontae still has a shot. I think that, the 5 years comment, Keontae could be a really, really good 7th to 10th man on your roster, either in Oklahoma City or elsewhere. He provides that juice. He provides a really good skill set. Keontae Johnson is going to be a good rotational player. Cason Wallace, in 5 years, he could be a starter in this league. And it could possibly be an OKC, depending on how the roster construction goes, but he can be a starting level player in this league, some either in OKC or elsewhere. So that's kind of where each of them lie. You can go back and listen to last week's episode with Locked On Kentucky host Rylan Stiles to talk about all about Cason Wallace's NBA future and what he can do based on his season at Kentucky. At the future GM1, if you could add one player from another team, realistically or unrealistically, who would it be? So if I could just plop a player on this team and not have to worry about what the return was to the other team. Like, for example, I'm just picking them up, putting them in OKC. We're not trading anyone over there. It's just now he's magically on the Thunder. It'd be Mikal Bridges. Like, oh my gosh, Mikal Bridges on this team would be incredible. OG Anunoby on this team would be incredible. Now, getting to some realistic names where you do worry about the return, I mentioned Dorian Finney-Smith. I really like the idea of him in OKC. I like the idea of PJ Washington in OKC. But if you could just get unrealistic and just plug a player in here, I would love Mikal Bridges. I would love OG Anunoby. The return for them, would be what you would worry about if you were actually to go try to get them. At Chris AC, out of all the rotational players, who is the most likely to take a leap? I would label it as like Josh will take a leap because people didn't give him the credit that he deserved for a second season leap. They were kind of all caught up in J-Dub, and you can argue they'll be caught up this year in Chet, but I think that his leap will look and get more attention this year. His stats will be a huge leap this year with the addition of Chet. So he could take a leap in the sense of his basketball reference page. In the sense of watching him in the eye test leap, I've always said Ousmane Dieng. I'll also throw in Poku. What if Poku, I know that we've written him off and people, he's a polarizing player and people either think the world of him or think that they should, cut him right now. Forget all that. Poku's gotten better every single year of his NBA career. And last year was his best year, but he suffered, a severe leg injury. But I ask you, what if Poku comes this year and he has a leap where he plays to that November stretch and he sustains that for the life of a season? If November Poku was real, that is a massive leap if he can do that over the course of an 82-game season. Now, the hard part is actually doing that. But he's at least shown that flash in November where he could be a guy to take a leap. And again, he's gotten better year over year. And so until a guy doesn't get better, it's hard to worry about it. He hasn't declined. He hasn't gotten worse. He's gotten better. So we'll see what he looks like in a more competitive environment, both internally and externally. At Basketball Wave, all-time Thunder 5 and best NBA players at each position. So the all-time Thunder 5, I think, is pretty standard. SGA and Russell Westbrook. I would say Russell Westbrook at the 1, Shea at the 2, Paul George at the 3, Kevin Durant at the 4. A little bit of cheating there, but he did play the 4 in his career. And then Steven Adams at the 5. Personally, I love Nick Collison. I would put Nick Collison in there, but I know that for the best 5 guys, you'd have Steve-O. You could also swap in Ibaka. So I guess if you wanted to play with Ibaka at the 5 instead of the 4, you could kind of finagle it that way, the way I did with Kevin Durant going to the 4. But nonetheless, Steven Adams at the 5 for me. Then, look, the best NBA stuff is going to spark a ton of outrage that's kind of unnecessary. So first of all, I'm only going to do players of my lifetime to make it easier because I'm not going to rank Wes Unseld, even though my dad thinks he's the best player of all time. I'll just do of my lifetime, and the positions, like, okay. Again, don't take this too seriously. Steph Curry at the 1, Kobe at the 2, LeBron at the 3, Dirk at the 4, Shaq at the 5. That's my best player at each position of my lifetime. At Beeves, does this new generation already have 3 future MVPs? In 2012, the Thunder did and didn't know it. Okay. Shea could absolutely win one. Like, Shea could win one. He finished top 5 in MVP last year on a team that made the play-in as an under 500 squad. So, like, he can actually do it. In Vegas, he's a top 10 odds guy to win the MVP. Your other options are Chet and J-Dub and Josh Giddey. The bottom line is we just don't know it. And these things are just impossible to predict. Like, that's why we didn't know it in 2012. Like, guys who haven't won the MVP are like Luka and Tatum, etc. If J-Dub reaches Luka and Tatum status, like, oh my gosh. And they don't have an MVP yet. So it's hard to say that they have 3 MVPs. Like, that gets a little bit carried away. But we could revisit this in a decade and say, whoa, way back in 2023, the Thunder drafted, 3 MVPs again. Who knows? But it's too early to know. Last question for this part. Again, part 2 will be tomorrow. So get your questions in on YouTube and on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. We're going to have to break this into 2 parts. At Basketball Wave again. If you could go 1-versus-1 against one of the Thunder's 5 best players, and they had to score 50 points before you scored once, who would win? I would get absolutely obliterated. I might not have a shot touch the rim. It would only take the Thunder player 50 possessions to win this game. Now, I have 2 options. Number 1, I think Jalen Williams J-Dub would just do this. Like if you asked him to, I think he'd do it. But like J-Dub, he might feel bad and just let me score just because he feels bad for me. So maybe he just let me score. And that would be the only way that a shot of mine touches the rim. I'm certainly never going to get a stop unless they feel bad and just shoot, a full length shot of the court. Maybe that will miss. It probably won't, but maybe it will. But if I had to just stay in front of a guy, I couldn't. And then my other scenario is if I pick Chet, okay, it's going to take 50 possessions because he needs to score 50 points. By block number 48, is he just rearing to get a 50 possession, 0 for 50, 50 block stat line where I could get him to just try to swat my shot to Mars and he leaps from the restricted area all the way back to the half court logo? Then I might see a shot touch the rim. So maybe you bet on that where you're so bad that Chet wants to block shot 48, 49, and 50 so that we can say he blocked all 50 shots and he just flies by because he just cannot contain himself trying to get that block. And even then I might not make it. So anyone who thinks that they can beat an NBA player is just silly, really silly. Even if it's a 1-on-1 to 50 points before I scored once, I couldn't do it. Now, again, there are some options. Like if J-Dub forgets the rules, right, and he's like, oh, I've just got to score 50 before he scores 50, and he lets me score once, maybe I could beat him and just is trying to be a nice guy. And then if Chet gets that flyby, maybe I could do it too. But other than that, there's not much hope. There's not much hope. And you can confirm that with everyone who's ever played media basketball around Oklahoma City. It's not good. It's not good. I've got a sick mid-range shot. Okay? The problem is getting in position and getting a shot off the mid-range. Like if you just let me shoot it, it'd be pretty good. The problem is you're playing the game. They don't just let you shoot it. Now, anyway, let me know what you think. Could you score 1 before they score 50? I doubt it. Even you, Daniel Bell, I doubt you could do it. Actually, you couldn't do it. Now, until tomorrow, when we answer more of your mailbag questions, be good and be good to one another.